area in softball, and Erin Gabriel. Erin, thank you so much for taking the time to hop on the show with us today.
Of course. Thank you guys for having me. I appreciate it.
Erin, I mean, first and foremost, what we always like to start off with is just let's look at this softball as a whole that we're going into in the area with regionals. I mean, we have so many teams that are going in, and I know you want to kind of talk a little bit about the teams, but talk about softball as a whole, too, around the area. I guess the first question I want to talk about is just with your experience in softball as popularity as a whole, what have you seen in the growth of softball as a sport too, from when you played in high school back in Poland up until now?
Yeah, softball in the area and just in general in the nation has been expanding. It's been great because when I was in school at Tennessee, I know that the SEC network and then ESPN started picking up more games, and it has just exploded since it's been on TV more. More younger girls are getting interested. They're watching college. They're getting inspired. They want to play. So I feel like softball in general, it continues to grow and expand through this area and throughout the nation, and I can't wait to see where it goes in the future.
You know, one of the things that we noticed real quick when we look at softball in the area this year, there is so much young talent, especially in the circle. It's got to speak to the growth of the sport. How have you seen the growth of, 6th to 8th grade, players that they're able to hop into varsity as a freshman and be ready to make immediate impacts on these varsity level? We didn't usually see it a lot back in the day.
Yeah, it used to be rare that you would see a freshman on varsity, especially if they even started. And now, I mean, you're seeing freshmen and sophomores take over the game. So it's really cool. I feel like girls are starting a lot younger. I know I have certain 6-year-olds that are starting to pitch, which was not heard of in my day. And then girls are playing year round consistently, and they're training even harder. So, and I know that girls are now lifting earlier too. When I was growing up, lifting as a female athlete wasn't as important. And now girls are starting to lift in 7th and 8th grade, and it's making a huge difference in their game.
For as much young talent as we're seeing in the regionals in this area, there's no doubt that there's also some senior talent as well. One of those being namely Paige Oden for the Ursuline Irish going into this tournament. What can you say about Paige's play too, being one of the seniors that we're seeing going into this tournament?
Yeah, Paige is a very special young woman. She works harder than anyone that I know. She's one of the top performers in this area, and she is very respectful for the game, very classy. I'm excited to see her continue on the mound and at the plate. I mean, all around, just a phenomenal athlete.
What does she bring to the circle that makes her unique and so hard to kind of hit when you have to stare across from her in the batter's box?
Yeah, I mean, obviously her pitches are outstanding. She has great break, good movement, very good speed. But my biggest thing is the presence on the mound. I mean, she really controls her emotion. She doesn't get too high, too low. She attacks the hitters, and she stays calm.
She might be a senior, but, you look at experience-wise, she missed a year with COVID, and she missed a year with injury. So really it's her second year of varsity experience. So you can kind of chalk her into a young experience-wise player in the area too, even though she's just a senior.
Yeah, she really, with losing those 2 years, that really says a lot to her about her composure from the injury and for COVID to come out, and she acts like a senior. She acts like she controls that field and she dominates.
With that kind of with those kind of things, you'd almost think like those are going to be superstitions too that are happening on the field of softball too, and it's such a sport of superstitions too. And I know particularly there was always something about red cleats and wearing red cleats in the game for you too. Where did that superstition start, and where do you think like the superstitions why it's more prevalent in softball than other sports?
Yes, my red cleats did not match my Poland uniform at all whatsoever. It started when I was young. I started out in red cleats, and they had to be red Nikes, and I don't know why. I did try a pair of just black Under Armour shoes. I remember them my freshman year. I was trying to at least stay in our colors for Poland, and it just didn't feel the same. Once they ripped, I went right back to the red. I don't know. It's something about superstition with baseball and softball athletes both. I feel like we have our pregame routines that we got to stick to. There's either some wear a cross or a necklace that they have, or certain earrings, or for me it was shoes, but it just makes you feel comfortable when you're out there.
Did you find as you got higher in the level of softball and you had your teammates in college that superstitions got a little bit more and more every level that went up? Because obviously if you got there must be a superstition reason why you got there.
Yeah, I can say that I feel like one of my teammates at Tennessee had something, even if it was like who was tying our bow before the game. I mean, it went that far. You had one person that would tie your bow and that's it. I had one person that would braid my hair and that was it. So, I mean, I feel like it got more and more as the games continued to get bigger and bigger.
Talked about that transition from that high school to the college realm too. Obviously, you were a very good student of the game, but you were also a very good student too. What kind of advice would you offer to these student athletes to keep it up, not only in the classroom, but also on the softball diamond, as you were able to do so well when you were in high school?
Yeah, academics are 100% the number one priority, and that is what you are going to have after your sports are over. So, especially as a female athlete, there's not as many opportunities for us to continue to play and for as long as male athletes. So, your academics are your priority, and that's what you have to make sure that you're taking your pride in and your time. So, it also speaks a lot about your discipline and your respect for yourself. So, make sure that you're disciplined enough to keep your grades up off the field and then get to play on the field.
You've pitched in regionals, you've pitched in state. How much does the stage and the pressure change from districts? Now you're playing regionals against teams that maybe you haven't seen before, and everything gets a little bit more intense. So talk about the stage change and how you handled it, and what advice you'd give to these players that are obviously going to be playing in regionals on Wednesday, and how they should handle that change between districts and regionals.
Yeah, districts was always normally teams you were comfortable with. You know, you played them throughout the season most of the time. You were on a field that you normally had played at before. You're comfortable with that field. You know the backstop. You know where the outfield, the fence gets to. So you were able to read and you were able to play a little bit better, more comfortable. Once you got to regional and state, you normally got to a bigger field. More fans were there. Teams you didn't play as often or never played before. So then the game and the stage gets a little bit bigger. But what I would tell the girls is it's the same game. It's still 60 feet, you know, it's still from home to first. It's still the same 43 feet as a pitcher. So nothing changes. Take one pitch at a time, enjoy the moment, and enjoy your teammates.
You were also a multiple sport athlete too, with Poland, playing soccer for 4 years as well. What can you speak on playing multiple sports in high school? Did you see any carryover success, if any, from sport to sport?
Yes, I definitely did. I know that soccer helped me a lot with my endurance and also my explosiveness. I actually didn't realize I wanted to play softball until I was a sophomore in high school. I really thought I was going to go play soccer in college, and that's what I wanted to do. So it's funny how things change. So you truly never know. I mean, I love both sports, but until I was a sophomore, I was going for soccer. And then things changed once I got on the junior team. But I loved it. I loved being able to take a little bit of time off softball to clear my head, or a little time off soccer. It makes you love the game more when you get back to it. But I definitely think it made me a better athlete overall.
Pitchers need good catchers. That's apparent. You had great catchers in your career. South Range has a pretty good catcher in Kelly Zolik, who manages the 1-2 punch of the Raiders, and Julie Stakowitz and Sam Suzanne. What makes the catcher so important, and what does Kelly do so well that excels her the all-state level?
Yeah, I got goosebumps when you started talking about Kelly, because she is just one special young lady. I mean, I've worked with her now for a couple years, and she is one of the hardest working, most disciplined young women that I've ever been around. She loves the game, just truly loves and enjoys the game. It doesn't matter. She has to come at 9 o'clock at night to come hit. She's coming. She'll come after a full day of work, and she's there. She's always getting her reps in. But her biggest thing is her mindset. You know, what I see in her, she's able to make quick adjustments. And for her pitchers, she's able to stay calm. She's always back there working hard. She's that calm demeanor that they need to turn to if something's going wrong. She can calm the game down, and she controls the game behind the plate.
We look at these great athletes that are in the area too, and I mean, there's so many of them that are going next level too, and have so many bright futures that we see from this particular area. For those that are kind of going to the next level, or have aspirations going to the next level, and they have to decide between colleges, obviously you had the choice of Tennessee over other prolific colleges that had offers to you as well. What made that decision easy for you, and what kind of advice would you offer to college athletes on choosing a college right for them?
Yeah, I definitely was not an easy decision. It was very difficult to make, because a lot of the times you're having to make it at a younger age. So it's very hard. You don't know what it's like to be away from home. You don't know how far you want to go from home or what division you want to play in. The biggest thing that I would tell athletes is make sure you look at the school. Because like I said, you're going to live there for 4 years, and the academics, like we already talked about. So make sure you're not just looking at the athletic side. I know that a lot of young athletes, that's what we do look at. We're like, oh, how good is their team? what teams do they play against, what division are they in. But make sure you can live there for 4 years, look around the area, and then what are their academics? What do you want to go into? Do they have that? Do they have a good career path for you?
You know, one of the players that might find herself in your shoes as a high caliber recruit is Sydney Watts from Fitch. I know you haven't had a chance to see her live yet, the freshman, but she throws, 65 to 68, which is good enough to get you looks anyway. Off speed. What kind of developments do you want to see from pitchers like that from freshman to senior year? Because now you can't get recruited until, you're a junior. So what kind of developments would you like to see as a coach from freshman to junior year when you already have the high velocity, you already have a little bit of off speed you can throw? What else can she add to her repertoire to take her from that next level where she can be looked at by Power 5 teams?
Yeah, incredible athlete in Sydney Watts. I mean, I just hear amazing things about her constantly from everyone that I encounter. I really want to go out and see her pitch in person. I've seen videos, but I would love to be there in person to get to see her. For her, I would definitely say the biggest thing that I worked on throughout my career was the command of my off speed and being able to throw it in any count. Didn't matter if it was 3-2 with bases loaded. That is going to help her tremendously if she can get that off speed with the velocity she already has. And then what I wish I would have worked on more before I got to college was how important locations are. So I know for me, when I was throwing that hard in high school, location didn't always mean as much to me. When you get to college, people are definitely throwing that hard more consistently, and you have to be able to locate on and off the plate. So you have to be able to command that river pitch, make sure that you can then move it on a little bit more on the plate or a little bit more off the plate and up and down in the zone.
Yeah, and even back when you were recruited, 70 miles an hour was kind of rare. But now it feels like every team in this tournament has someone that can go 68, 70 miles an hour. So is velocity really something that pops eye anymore when you can throw that hard? Or are coaches now looking more towards, can you locate it? Can you move it? Can you have an off speed? I mean, I feel like when you were recruited, 70 would probably be one of those ones where a coach could say, well, I can fix anything that, but you're throwing 70. I got to look at you.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. And I do think it goes back to girls are starting at a younger age now to pitch, and they're also lifting earlier. So girls with their velocity, there's so much more, mid to upper 60s to even sometimes 70. All teams are starting to have a pitcher that can throw that. So I agree with that. A lot of coaches that I talk to, they're looking for swings and misses. Can you move the ball, and how's your off speed? I really do think that the girls that are the most successful that I see, they have a dominant off speed because the hitters just can't time them up.
There we go. You've had the runs. You've had runs to state. You've been on the big show, and you've pitched in the big show too. For the teams that are left too now in the regional part of the state tournament, we know no game gets easier at this point. It only gets more and more difficult. What is the way to kind of deal with nerves at this level and anticipation for some of these younger athletes and some of the older ones, especially knowing that this might be their last game, or they don't know if this next game is their last game?
Yeah, the biggest thing is to stick to your routine. Stick to your pregame routine, what you normally do. And then when you get to the field, stay within yourself, stay with your routine. Don't make the opponent bigger than what they are. That's what my biggest thing that I know I used to do is I would always hype the opponent up a little bit too much. And you just have to stay within yourself, stick to your game, trust your teammates, and trust yourself.
We're starting to see more and more regional rivalries in the area. South Range Ursuline met last year. They're looking to meet this year. Who is that regional rivalry for you guys, or a team that you would always kind of look at and say, this is a team that will probably meet in state or meet in regionals, and it becomes one of those, man, whoever wins this game might go to state?
Yeah, our biggest one was Keystone. I know that was like our biggest rival. We would either meet them in regional or state, and that was our number one rival as we were going towards that run.
They just lost their first district championship since 2013, so we will not see Keystone in this regional tournament.
Yeah, they I know that they had a different head coach this year too for the first time in a long time, so a little bit different there. They'll build and they'll be back.
Oh yeah, programs like that rebuild. Speaking about programs that rebuild, Poland took a couple of years off after you graduated, but now they're starting to get back into that routine where they're consistently fighting for regionals. You coached a couple of girls from Poland in Abby Farber, and now she's going Division I. I want you to get a chance to talk about her a little bit too.
Mm-hmm. Yes, Abby, I am so incredibly happy for her. She's been dreaming about this and working for it her whole career. I've known her since she was a little girl, and she always looked up to me, and she was always inspired to go and do big things. And she's worked so incredibly hard. I know that during COVID, she was not taking any time off. She was out at the field constantly. I would drive by and I would see her all the time. We would go out there and work. On days that I wasn't working with her, I know she was out there working, and she'd even go out and do workouts. So she deserves this. She's going to do great at that next level, and I can't wait to see what big things she's accomplishing.
She gets to follow other Poland alumni, same Bonaventure, Brooke Bobby. If you could have one Poland player that graduated before you that you could have followed, who is one player that you wish that you could have just said, I'm going to take you to Tennessee with me?
Oh, wow. Who graduated with me or before me?
Before you, like someone that you wish went to Tennessee and you could follow there or whatever.
Yeah, Liz Maurer, she was a really good pitcher at Poland before I got there, and she actually lived up the street from me. So that is someone I really looked up to because she had a pitching mound in her backyard that her dad made for her. And I remember I'd always go and watch her pitch, and then her dad actually let me use their mound too. So it was really nice to be able to see my neighbor always pitching. Then I'd go watch the games and I'd get to see her. So she was a role model for me.
And looking at that, and obviously being a coach, you've taken mentorship roles as far as you can too. But what for your advice for some of these seniors too, who are just learning to become leaders, who are just stepping into the leadership roles? How important do you think it is for these older players to mentor the younger players that are on the team while they have a chance and while they're still there?
Yeah, it's very important that the older girls take those younger ones under their wings. And, it even could be a younger girl that's stepping up to be a leader. You don't know. Some girls just are natural born leaders and they have those qualities. But it's important to understand there's different types of leaderships. There's lead by example. They're a little bit quieter, but their presence and command on the field is just something that you admire and you look up to and you follow. And then there's the more vocal leaders that hold everyone accountable. So whatever their role is, they got to make sure they understand their role and that they are providing those qualities for their team.
I want to ask what the best stadium you've ever played in. And I want to take out your home stadium. So I got to take out really, got to take out North Elementary. But besides your home stadiums, what was the favorite stadium that you got to play in? I think it might be, don't say Oklahoma City either. That's the easy answer.
No, I honestly think I'd have to go with Alabama, which I know I can't even believe I'm saying another SEC school, but it was electric in that stadium. It was just unbelievable the amount of support that Alabama softball has. I remember their band was there. They had this huge student section that was just, yelling at us the whole time, even when we were in the dugout. It was incredible to feel the energy in that stadium. So I'd have to go with the Rhodes House for sure.
That being said, how impressed are you that someone went in there and won this weekend?
Oh, I would never. I was shocked. I was like, I never thought that Alabama would ever lose a regional. But for Stanford to go in and beat them like that, I mean, you got to tip your cap to them because that's incredible.
On top of all that, we talk about these great schools, and we talked a little bit about the difficulty you had in choosing the school. But I think another thing a lot of kids have difficulty with is choosing that major too. You nailed it down to nutrition, but what was that kind of process for you trying to choose your major? Because we know a lot of student athletes in particular have a little bit trouble choosing their major going into the college.
Yes, I actually was very confused. I had no idea. It was because I had so many interests. I went in so many different directions. So I'm really glad that you brought this up so that other kids can hear this. I went in undecided. I had no idea. So I went in and I took a couple courses in each of these areas that I had interest in, and I narrowed it down. And actually, nutrition wasn't anything I ever thought of, but I was actually required to take a nutrition class as an athlete, and I just fell in love with it. And then my senior year, I was going to go to Ohio State to get my master's in nutrition and be a sports dietitian. And after I got injured with a hip injury my freshman year, and I was in physical therapy all 4 years at Tennessee, and I decided my last semester at Tennessee that I was going to go and get my doctorate in physical therapy instead. So you truly never know what path you're going to take or what something, one little thing could change your whole direction in life. So I would say just take everything in, try new things. If you're interested in it, go and do it because you never know what it's going to end up being like.
When we look at the teams that are left, they're established programs that have been here for a while, that have succeeded for a while, probably because they've had coaching staffs that have been there for a while. Even Ursuline, it's new head coach, but been with the program. How much is sustainability and coaching sustainability important in building high school programs, do you think?
I think that's a very good and true statement because I do know you have to build it from the community too. So if the high school coach gets involved in the youth programs, like I know my coach, Coach Lamport, he did great with that. He would build the programs from the youth program up. I remember he would come to games when we were younger. The high school girls would always come down to our classes to talk to us about softball, always holding the youth clinics. So the more that the coach and then the coach can get the girls involved in the younger ages, it really builds that community and builds the support for the program to then continue on throughout.
You obviously had a lot of other things that you did outside of softball in your high school career, French club, science club. You're on both the courts for homecoming and prom. Talking about that, how important was it for you to kind of have those other getaway clubs too, to kind of get your mind off of the sport of softball and kind of take a mental break from time to time?
Yes, those are very important. We have to understand as athletes, we sometimes fall into that trap of we only identify ourselves as an athlete. So then everything we do on the field means that it reflects on us and who we are. And that's not the case. So always make sure that as an athlete, you do have to shut it off at times. You have to go do other things, show other interests, try new things. So for athletes, they have to make sure that they aren't only identifying themselves as an athlete and they are trying and doing other things.
Yeah, now more than ever, mental health is so important in softball. Mm-hmm. Do you think that the growth of the sport has also come with more pressure of the sport? You're always on ESPN. You're always looked at in college if you are in that level, but even in high school, you're ranked when you're 13 years old. Do you think the growth of the sport has also brought a higher bit of pressure that comes with being successful?
Yeah, I agree with that. With how much it's on TV and then also social media, I feel like social media has really changed the game as well. I do think that there's more pressure on these younger athletes to perform because they're always being watched. I know that some of people when I was growing up, they always felt that, but now I feel like all of the girls are feeling that. So it's very important. I think that girls are starting to talk more too, and athletes in general are starting to open up and talk more. Both my parents are psychologists, so I was really lucky on that end to be able to stay kind of within myself, and I had others to talk to. They would always kind of check in on me. So I do think that athletes, as they're going, they need to make sure that they check with themselves, check in on themselves, and check in on others.
I'm sure there's one point in your career where you were mentally low, where you were struggling mentally. What was one thing that you did to get through a moment like that?
Yes, I remember specifically when I was at Tennessee and I got injured my freshman year, and I was at the lowest point that I've ever been as an athlete. I was told I'd never pitch again from the doctor that did my surgery, and I didn't even know who I was without softball. So I remember I worked extremely hard to get back on the mound, but I also had to start to take a second to see, hey, I'm not just an athlete. What else do I enjoy doing? What else do I love to do outside of my sport? So that helped me a lot. But then I also made goals, and what do I want to achieve for my future? And I made goals for my sport and outside of my sport, and that helped me a lot.
Obviously, everyone's situation isn't universal and it's not one size fits all. But with all these activities that you had in high school, and obviously being a college athlete is very time consuming, what kind of time management skills or tips would you offer to some athletes, both in high school and going to the college level, to kind of make sure that they give themselves that time to have that and find that inner peace with themselves as well?
Yeah, time management is huge, especially as you continue to move on in your career and your time gets less and less. You have to plan, you have to schedule out your time, you have to be on top of things, so you can't wait till last minute. So sometimes in high school, we get away with waiting on that big project till the last minute and getting it done. And that's not always the case in college, because you have multiple projects that need done on the same day, or you have 3 finals in one day. So learning how to time manage, being disciplined to get things done early and on time, and look ahead at your schedule, look ahead at your travel schedule, and make sure you know when your games are and when your practices are.
Before we let you go, I want to give you a chance to go into what you're doing now, what you're up to now in the area. I know you're big still in the softball with the full circle fast pitch that you opened. Talk about what you're up to and what's next for Erin Gabriel.
Yeah, so it was really interesting. With COVID, I was down at the University of Florida, and I was actually working with their athletes as a physical therapist, and it was in my last clinical rotation. COVID hit, it sent me home. I never thought I would be doing this, and I opened my own softball indoor facility, and I coach, and I absolutely enjoy it. I love it more than anything. I'm starting a travel organization with a nonprofit. It's called Rise 360. It's going to be partnering with Full Circle. They're going to be training out of our facility, and I just cannot wait to continue to grow softball in this area.
If people want to get involved with Full Circle Fast Pitch and want to come and get coached by you or get coached by the people that you work with, what are the steps they have to take?
Yes, we do have a website. It's fullcirclefastpitch.org. My email is on there. They can directly email me, and I will get right back to them.
I mean, you talked about some athletes you have a chance to coach, Abby Farber being one that we named here on the show too. What kind of importance does it serve you to be able to kind of give back to not only just student athletes too, but also student athletes that hit so close to home being from Poland High School.
Yeah, it means so much to me because I know I was given a lot when I grew up in the area by many different people. And I want to be able to be that person for the girls in this area. I want them to be able to turn to me on and off the field, whatever they need. If it's softball related or non-softball related, I want to be there for them in their life.
Erin, thank you so much for taking the time to join us. We talked a little of your journey. We talked a little local softball. We're ready for regionals on Wednesday. We feel like we've done a pretty good job of previewing regionals. We thank you for joining us, and we will definitely open door policy. Anytime you want to come on the show, you're welcome.
Oh, I would love to come back. Thank you all for having me.